therapist says I should write this down. She says externalizing it helps. I've been trying for 6 months and I keep getting to a certain point and stopping. I'm going to try not to stop this time. This was last summer. I'd just come out of a long relationship. 4 years with someone who made me feel like I needed permission to exist. And my friend Darcy had been pushing me to do something on my own for once. Something that was just mine. She suggested a solo camping trip. I pushed back hard at first. I'd camped plenty of times, but always with other people. She said that was exactly the point. I booked a pitch at a small site in the Brecon Beacons. Mid-week, late July. The kind of site that's basically a farmer's field with a tap and a composting toilet block. No electric hookups, no Wi-Fi. 12 pitches, and when I arrived on the Tuesday afternoon, only 3 of them were occupied. A retired couple with a camper van at the far end, a family with 2 young kids somewhere in the middle, and me near the entrance, which I'd specifically chosen so I could see any cars coming in and out. Even then, I was already thinking that way. You never fully escape 4 years of someone teaching you to be afraid of your own judgment. I set up my tent, made pasta on my little gas stove, and sat outside until it got dark, watching the hills go purple. It was genuinely lovely. I felt something loosen in my chest that had been knotted for a long time. He arrived around 9:30 that night. I heard the car before I saw it, a diesel engine slow along the track, and watched the headlights sweep across the field. He pulled up to the pitch directly next to mine, which I thought was strange given how many empty pitches there were. There was no rule about it. It just felt like an odd choice. He was alone, late 50s I'd guess, stocky, with the kind of outdoor gear that looked brand new. He didn't acknowledge me when he got out of the car, didn't glance over, didn't nod. Just started pulling equipment out of his boot with his back to me. Most people arriving at a quiet campsite would at least do the neighborly smile. The deliberate non-acknowledgement felt more pointed than rudeness. I went to bed and told myself I was still in my head from the relationship. Projecting. My therapist and I had talked a lot about how hypervigilance rewires the way you read situations. I genuinely couldn't tell anymore whether my instincts were warning me or just malfunctioning. I fell asleep to rain on the flysheet, and it was fine. The first thing I noticed in the morning was that his tent faced mine. Not toward the view, not toward the toilet block, directly at my tent. The door was angled so that anyone sitting inside with the flap open would have a straight sight line to where I slept. I noticed it, and immediately started explaining it away. The ground was uneven. The guy ropes needed a certain configuration. I was doing it again, talking myself out of my own perception. I didn't see him all morning. Went for a walk, came back, made lunch. The camper van couple waved at me on their way out. The family left after them, kids shrieking happily, loading a dog into the back of their car. By 2 in the afternoon, it was just the 2 of us on the site. He appeared at the tap while I was filling my water bottle. He was closer than I expected. I hadn't heard him approach, and when I startled, he smiled. Not warmly. The kind of smile that acknowledges it caught you off guard and doesn't mind that at all. He asked how long I was staying. I said I wasn't sure. He nodded slowly and said he'd planned to be there all week. Said he came every year. Said it was the kind of place where you could really watch things properly. I didn't ask what he meant by that. That afternoon, I walked to the farmhouse and spoke to the site owner, a woman in her 60s called Pat, on the pretext of asking about local walks. I described the man and said he'd mentioned coming here every year. She looked at me for a moment and said she didn't recognize him from my description. Said she'd check the booking in. A new booking, she told me when she came back. Made yesterday morning. Cash. He'd listed his number plate but given no name beyond a single initial. She didn't seem alarmed. I didn't know how to explain why I was. I went back and sat in my tent with the zip closed and tried to decide what to do. My car was 20 feet away. I could leave, but I'd paid, and it was my trip, and I was trying very hard not to be the person who abandons things because of a feeling. That's what my ex had always said about me, that I catastrophized, that I ruined things. So I stayed, which I think about a lot now. Around 7, I built a small fire and sat by it. He came out of his tent and sat in a camping chair on his pitch, facing me. No book, no phone, no food. Just sitting there, watching. I stared into the fire and didn't look up. After about 40 minutes, I heard his chair shift and risked a glance. He was gone. I exhaled slowly and began to feel slightly stupid. Maybe he was just odd. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe I'd spent the whole day tormenting myself over a socially awkward man who liked looking at hills. I banked the fire and went to bed around 10. At some point in the night, I don't know what time, I woke up. No noise that I could identify. Just the particular feeling of having been woken by something that had already stopped. I lay still inside my sleeping bag and listened. My tent has a small mesh vent panel at the top of the inner. Through it, if there's enough contrast, you can sometimes see shapes against the sky. I was staring at it and trying not to breathe loudly when I realized the shadow I was looking at was not a tree. It was a person, standing directly beside my tent, completely still. I did not move. I did not make a sound. I lay there and watched the shadow, and it didn't move either, and I have never in my life felt so acutely aware of how thin tent fabric actually is. I don't know how long it lasted, long enough that my legs began to cramp from holding still. And then, slowly, the shadow shifted and was gone. I lay there until it was fully light. When I came out of the tent, his car was gone. Tent, car, every trace of him, gone. At some point during the night, he had packed up and left without making a sound. Pat said he checked out around 3 a.m., slid an envelope under her door, pre-counted cash, like he'd planned to leave at that time all along. I don't camp alone anymore. I've thought a lot about whether that's a victory for my fear or a reasonable conclusion, and I'm still not sure. My therapist says both things can be true, that trusting yourself isn't the same as giving in to anxiety, that sometimes the wiring isn't malfunctioning, sometimes it's just right. I don't know what that man wanted. I don't know why he came to that site, or why he left when he did, or what he was doing standing outside my tent in the dark. I think about it most nights still.